Hey everybody, this is a new recording setup. This is my third setup. The first setup was the one that I did with just my computer sitting in my bed using the camera from the computer and the microphone from the computer. Then the other one I did was one where I have a couple mics plugged in using a Focusrite, which is also called a Scarlett device, which allows me to plug in high quality mics into my Mac. And I then use the live recording option through YouTube to record it. And I do it live. And if I had any followers, they would be able to see me live and we could chat and it would be awesome. But of course, I'm just starting out. And, I hadn't told a lot of people about my illness. And I made this channel really not for me, but for other people who have the illness because I wanted to give them information. And I also feel like I should explain some of this the technology behind that I'm using in order to make this podcast / YouTube channel. Everything just goes out via YouTube. I also, in the case of my other channels, I send stuff out through Facebook and some other channels. And probably I might join a couple of pancreatic cancer billboards when I feel like talking about stuff or learning what other people are doing. Right now, I'm just kind of in the sharing mode. So I'm just making my own stuff and sharing it with the world. But I did think it was important to share the technology. So if anybody wanted to do this in the future, they could. And this particular setup is really easy. I have this mic, which is a Rode Podcaster. I have this little stand, which you can buy kit that comes with this hanging stand. You see that it's on an arm, it moves, it kind of goes up and down. And they also make these little cages that work with these things. And I have one of those, but it was made for a different mic. And so actually I couldn't connect it to this, which kind of sucks because I liked the idea of having the cage. Although, just because it, if I bump this thing or whatever, it would pick up less on that. Although it does make this have a little bit smaller footprint on the screen. The cage is about this big, so you can see with my hand that that's about what it would take up, that kind of thing. And I'm looking at the screen here. I also have a Logitech HD cam that, so I'm not using the cam on my computer because my computer's right here in front of me. And since I don't need an extra microphone for this setup, it's just me talking. It's cool that I just plug the mic straight into my computer. So it's going right in through the USB connection. The camera, the Logitech, is plugged right in via USB connection as well. And so there's no need for like the Scarlett / Focusrite device, which allows me to hook up the higher end mics, which, by the way, those microphones are higher end and they have what they call an XLR input, which is typically what you find when you are in a band or whatever. That's kind of like the standard plug-in interface that they use with microphones. So I have that. And what I was going to do with this is I can sit here and talk to you and I can bring stuff up on my computer. I'm using the recording from the Go Live setup on YouTube, right? So it's recording it. And later on when I finish, I can go and I can do a little bit of editing, not a whole lot because it's pretty limited, or at least as I understand it, it's pretty limited. However, in this case, I was going to call my buddy. It's pretty late. It's 1 a.m. And usually I have a couple friends who are night owls. And sometimes we talk, after the kids are asleep and everything, then we kind of have time to kind of chat with each other and just, get along. He lives down in LA, and of course I'm here in the Bay Area, so it makes it easy for us to do that. But what I had thought of is I would bring him up on FaceTime, and I'm using a thing called ScreenFlow, which is what's used typically to record the screen of your computer. So when I was in the tech world, I did a lot of training, and I used to use ScreenFlow so that I could show people things on software. So I could record my screen, I could record a video of me, and then I would use it to edit a video that was like me saying, "Hey, how's it going?" And then it would go boop to the screen, and I could, maneuver it and click and paste and do all kinds of stuff and show people how to use different types of software. What I thought for this would be really cool because it's recording the camera and then it's also recording my desktop. And so what I thought is when I bring my buddy up using FaceTime, I could have him, I could capture the screen of him on FaceTime, and then, or just use my desktop. I could kind of select a portion of it where it would be, pleasing to the eye, that you could kind of look at it and not be annoyed. And then we'd have the audio of him speaking because it records my audio here, and it also records the audio of the computer. So we have good audio on both sides. And then I could kind of have this long distance conversation with my friend, just like if we were doing an interview that you see on a lot of different sites. There is software that's made specifically for that. And there's even stuff with multicam, but it's kind of funny if you look at different things, especially these different types of software, you might find that sometimes it's easier to use software that was made for another purpose, to kind of repurpose it and use it for something else. And, I learned that a long time ago because it was this thing of like, number one, not having gobs of cash. Number two, I used to work for a company where we showed people how to use Photoshop and how to do digital photography and digital video. So I knew a lot of people who were trainers, and I went to a lot of shows and I'd watch trainers there. And you kind of pick up all these things. And the one thing that I had always dealt with was I didn't have a lot of cash. And when it came to my home setup, I was always kind of like piecing some kind of like Frankenstein setup together. And the cool thing about that was I was just repurposing the software for my own purposes. And sometimes it's an easier solution than what is out there and what is typically made for that purpose. So I've done that time and time again. And the reason I mention this is because as far back as 1994, 93, I was at a trade show, and it was right before the Flash. If you're a web designer, you know what Flash is. It was an animation technology for the web, but then they also used it to build websites. And I was at this trade show, and it was before Flash came out. And it was the web had just launched, and there was a need for people to create web banners, right? Animated web banners. And at that time, people would use Photoshop and kind of do this little thing where they'd make multiple images, and you could kind of do this little GIF thing and make a little animation. But it was a bit clunky. And this company called Macromind, or I don't know if they were Macromedia at that time, but they had produced this software that was called like Web Banner. And we had a booth right across the way from them. So I spent 4 days at this Macworld show, talking to people about our products, but I was standing right in front of their demo area. So at that 4 days, I watched their demos for 4 days solid, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. And let me tell you, at the end of those 4 days, I could have gone to that company and said, hey, I would like a job demoing your software, because I know it back to front after watching that demo. But the thing is that they had created this software that you could make these web banners, animated web banners. And, there was like 3 or 4 different sizes of animated web banners. Actually, you could make any size, but there were kind of like 3 or 4 sizes that people were typically selling on their web pages, because there wasn't a lot of standardization back then. But there was this thing where it's like, oh, typically web banners are this size because people were having to sell them. So they kind of defaulted to establishing these 4 little sizes. Anyway, and I saw what they could do with this web banner software. And it's so funny because I saw, they didn't have like a pre-selected size. You would have to go in and actually put in the size. So I was sitting there thinking, God, and I said, you know what? I've been watching this software. I think it's so cool. And back then it was, and even today, I'm sure people still do it. I went to them and I said, we got a lot of cool books. I know you guys, we use our books. We use your software. Can I do a trade? Like, give me a copy of that software and I'll trade you, 10 books or whatever is the equal cost of it. And the girl was like, sure, no problem. And so I went home with this thing and I started making animations for my website. And I was creating my artist website. So I did simple things like, on my website, I took a picture of my eye and I wanted it to blink. It was like my eye was going to sit on my screen. It was like an image and I wanted it to sit there. And every once in a while, I wanted it to blink like a regular eye. And I thought it would be totally cool to do that. And right now I'm going to search for the Wayback Machine. If you've ever heard about that, the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, because I can look up that old website of mine and I think possibly I can find that. Yes, here it is. I built my website, my first version in 2000. Wow. If I actually wasn't such a big screw up, because I kind of just dived headlong into marketing and I became like a marketing genius. But the reality is that I was a creative genius, and that's where I should have stayed. I should have gone into the creative area and been building websites and doing things, but I didn't because I'm an idiot. I could have made a lot more money. And okay, here's one of my sites. This is actually the first, and you can see these little animations that I made were using, they were using this software. I don't have any links here. I can show you that animation, but I'm sure I can find the blinking eye if I look hard enough. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. I also did a thing called Simply Porn, which was great. It was like I was such a thought leader back then. Oh, here's another one. Under construction, check back soon. That's when my website took a dive. Here's the thing when I made the first Saint Iris. Let's see. Home. This is my first site that I did it in English and in German, of all things. Wasn't I spectacular? I was kind of a bit of a Germophile, so I wanted to kind of show people how amazing I was. Let's see if I can find. Wow. Can't believe this crazy site. Shoot. I guess it didn't go that far back. In 2000, oh God. There's a car accident that happened in front of my studio. These are pictures I took for, here's a car that was a van that was on fire in front of my studio. Here's a picture of cops at one of the demonstrations. Wow. Apparently, that's all I got, kids. Sorry, I failed miserably at, where the heck is that thing? I can't believe it, because I really would love to show you that. It was so cool. It was like, and if I could find it, I'd put it on my my current website. Definitely, I'm going to Facebook some of this stuff because they were great. It's great to look into this Wayback Machine. If you just Google Wayback Machine, you'll find it. It's a pretty cool thing, showing people what was going on back in the day. I guess these things somehow stayed on the web. It's really interesting because you find out what has lasted on the web, 13 captures. Wow. So trying to think of where 2005. I started in 2002 or 2000. This is one snapshot. It's the same website. Darn it. Good darn it. Can't find it. A timeline that was earlier, because I know this was, found some old paintings of mine. Wow. Commissions that I did. That was interesting. Which in German I called it Arbeit für Dollar. What a goofus. What a serious goof. I did mixed media. And there's my famous sculpture, Machine Gun Jesus. Wow, I did some interesting stuff back in the day. I can't find it. Photography, painting, commissions, exhibitions, which was just a list of places that I showed, private collections, contact, which is exactly the same as it has always been forever and ever. Well, folks, I feel like I lost. Anyway, that was a great story, and I wish I could find that. Someday I'll find it and I'll put it up. But for now, this was just a test. Anyway, back to the pancreatic cancer channel. So I just wanted to explain a little bit of the technology behind this channel, because I think if you decide to share your experience with anybody, you might want to do this. And doing an interesting setup is kind of makes it a little fun. And we're talking about something that's very serious, but at the same time, we want to have some fun doing it, right? So yeah. So let's see. So back to this. I'm just testing this, so I'm just going to shut this down now. Oh, and I got to shut down the podcast. I mean, the stream. How do I shut back the stream? Live streaming. There it is. And how do I stop it? I want to stop the stream. Darn it. There's just say something. Hello, world. I wish you were here with me. I feel so alone. Okay, now how can I stop this? I want to stop it. Stop. In the name of love. All right, I'm having problems here. We're having some technical difficulty. Oh, there it is. So it looks like, oh, I got, okay, I think I did stop it. End stream. There it is. End streamed. End.